Chat, did you know that $20 an hour is now a six-figure salary? Crazy. If you haven't seen it on the internet yet. But one of Fox News' hosts during its prime time thought $20 an hour was a six-figure salary. And then when he was corrected saying $20 an hour is $40,000 for the year, he goes, oh, well, then if you have a household with two of those salaries, that's basically $100,000, except it's not. It's $80,000, which is $20,000 less than $100,000. So that's what I'm setting up for. So anyway, for those that don't know, Jesse Waters now hosts the late night Fox show that Tucker Carlson used to host. He was speaking on Patrick Bet-David's podcast, who also kind of sucks. But Jesse Waters looked very bad here and very out of touch. So here's the clip.
If you're making $20 an hour to work at a fast food restaurant, right? Is that six figures? Are you making
No.
40
grand.
50 is just two exit and add a few zeros.
Okay, so
40K a year,
okay,
full time.
40K a year.
Yeah.
So, and then if your husband or wife is also there, you're making $100,000 as a family.
Sure.
Both working at McDonald's.
80
Yes.
grand.
That is okay. That's crazy. That is crazy, because that job really doesn't require much. So it's inflating the entire, labor sector
And the Happy Meal.
and the Happy Meal,
Unhappy, very unhappy.
which I'm very unhappy about. But
Why do people listen to this clown? This is ridiculous. So, not only can he not do math, he's so goddamn out of touch that he thinks $20 an hour is six figures. Also, this person has definitely never worked in a single service industry job. To straight up say, oh, doesn't require much to work is insane. Fast food workers bust their ass and they get paid. They get paid absolute for their jobs. On top of that, the franchisees, which are the owners of the individual stores, and the corporations that back the franchises are making money hand over fist on these workers. So when you say doesn't require much, you realize that workers are creating a ton of value for these companies. What is McDonald's? Is McDonald's publicly traded? Yeah, it's publicly traded. McDonald's is trading at $2.68 a share right now. So their last quarter, they made a net income of $2.04 billion. That's profits. They made $2 billion. Every single penny that is a profit is a stolen wage from their workers. The workers are creating the value for the companies, and then the companies are pocketing the excess value instead of paying the workers. On top of that, companies like Walmart and McDonald's and everything don't pay their workers. Therefore, their workers then go on welfare, which our tax dollars then subsidize their profits. Walmart is like the biggest criminal with this. Most of their workers are on welfare, and Walmart is making a ton of money. But again, back to Jesse Waters. This dude is supposed to be the voice of quote unquote working class people and the voice of right wing. He's supposed to be in touch with his audience. To think that $20 an hour is six figures is insane. $20 an hour is not even remotely close to six figures. That's like what I was making coming out of grad school. And again, everybody's gonna say fast food workers and everything are high school jobs, blah, blah, blah. Sure, whatever. You can think that all you want. But 70% of the people that work for these fast food restaurants are regular adults. They need to pay the bills. I don't understand how some working class people watch this show and watch these people and are like, you know what? That guy's my guy. He speaks the truth. He gets me. This quote is unbelievable. And on top of that, to cover his ass, he goes, if you have a two-person household working at that McDonald's making $20 an hour, when you add those salaries together, that makes like six figures, right? No, it makes less than six figures. It makes $80,000, which is $20,000 less than six figures. You can't just say like, oh, $80,000 is like $100,000. It's not true. The fact that these people are truth sayers for a sect of people is crazy. And to think they're the voice of the working class people and they can't figure this shit out is nuts. He's hawking a book right here. You can't do basic math. They told you $40,000. You multiplied it by 2 and you're like, oh, that's $100,000. There's elementary school children that could do that fucking math. Oh, this guy has never worked a day in his fucking life, but he's going to sit here and be the voice for working class people. Fucking insane. With that being said, chat, unionize. Unionize so you can take the profits away from the corporations and your bosses and put it into workers' pockets, including yourself. Unions will advocate for your own well-being. God damn. Guy's a moron. Can't believe people actually watch that. 80K is hardly a lot if you consider that a two-person likely has kids. Yeah. I didn't even get to that point. Like, 6 figures is really not that much for a lot of markets in the area. Like in San Francisco and New York City, 100K is like, should be the median in order to pay for rent and everything. And like you said, if you have kids and everything, that's definitely not enough. Like 80K as a two-person household is living, I don't know, kind of comfortably. Like you're not, depending on the debt that you have, and if it's like student debt or credit card debt or anything, it's not that bad. Like I make about 40 to 50 and I'm not doing okay. Like I'm doing fine, but I'm not like comfortable. I'm paying the bills month to month. I'm working my ass off, but like to sit there and say, "Oh, actually, you're definitely you're definitely doing okay, making $20 an hour." That's like not the case. I mean, if minimum wage kept up with inflation. So this article is from 2020 from the Center for Economic and Policy Research. So the original post gave the amount as $24 an hour. It would almost be $21.50 an hour. Here's the trend. If minimum wage rose with productivity from 1948 to today, it'd be $21.45 an hour. When minimum wage was created, FDR straight up said minimum wage was meant to be a livable wage. FDR's Living Wage and A Fight for 15, analyzing the original intent of minimum wage. Among his other ambitions and New Deal initiatives, government programs that sought to help the United States recover from the economic disaster of the Great Depression, FDR fervently pushed for the establishment of a national minimum wage. After congressional legislation that would allow the president to establish a national minimum wage was blocked by the Supreme Court in 1935, Roosevelt sought to increase the wages of federal contract workers as a first step towards the national minimum wage. So the reason that you increase the wages for federal workers is that it then forces private businesses to pay the workers the same or more to entice the workers from government jobs. $20 is enough for one person to survive on their own. I think that is fair as a minimum wage. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think what the number that they came to survive anywhere in the United States. But again, minimum wage is the bare minimum that a person is going to get paid in order to survive. But it also depends on where you're located. So if you're located in a high rent area, you need to obviously be paid more in order to pay for things like rent, food, basic necessities like transportation, because this is America. We don't have public transportation. So we literally have to have a car at all times. So we got to pay for gas. We got to pay for car insurance. We got to pay for all that. Oh, this is the one I was looking for. States with the highest cost of living. DC, living wage for individuals is $20.80. Living wage for a family of 4 is $27.06. The actual minimum wage is $15.20. So that is a $5.60 difference between the living wage and a minimum wage. New York, same thing. New York is a $7 difference. Massachusetts, $20 is a $5 difference. Hawaii, 1968, again, $20. It's a $10 difference. So like you were saying, Rockfrost, 20 is probably enough to get by. And it's not necessarily getting by comfortably, but 20 is like the bare minimum that we should have it at for federal minimum wage. It should definitely be higher because not only do we want people to survive, but we want people to be fucking comfortable. It's so funny that like small business tyrants that are lobbying against a raise in minimum wage. If your business can't generate enough revenue that you can pay your workers a living wage, your business shouldn't exist. Then you should be put back into the labor field. But these small business tyrants are so terrified of being put back into the labor market because they know how they treat labor, so they don't want to be treated like that as well. They're so terrified of their business failing and them having to be put into the labor pool that they are clawing and scratching as much as they can from the government to ensure that their businesses survive so they can continue to treat labor like. So they're asking for subsidies, which was the PPP loans that literally got forgiven. And it was billions and billions of dollars. I think it was $700 billion was the last number that I saw, which is double the number of what it would be if we would forgive student debt. Or, sorry, if we would forgive Biden's initial student debt. But forgiving people's student debt, that's a travesty. But, you know, forgiving PPP loans of all the businesses and including corporations who are making billions and billions of dollars in profits, but that's okay. Like, what the doesn't make any sense. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing as a society? So states with the lowest living wage. So South Dakota, you only need $13, according to this website. The minimum wage is $9.95 for the state. So it's still a $4 difference between the living wage and the minimum wage. What needs to happen is there needs to be a law passed for the minimum wage to raise it to, like I'm saying, $20 minimum, and then it adjusts with the pricing index with each year so that it continues to keep up with inflation. So that when you get like a 2% raise, but inflation's 5%, that you're not actually getting a 3% loss. But yeah, it's an ongoing conversation. And like I said, FDR literally said a minimum wage is meant to be a livable wage. This is what he said at the beginning when he was establishing the minimum wage. For those that don't know, FDR was trying to pass a second Bill of Rights in his fourth term. His second Bill of Rights were meant to pass laws that would ensure that every American, they would be given an opportunity to have a useful and remunerative job, so a well-paying job, earn enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation, again, livable wage, every farmer to raise and sell his products at a return which would give his and his family a decent living, of course, and every businessman, large and small, to trade in an atmosphere of freedom from unfair competition and domination by monopolies at home, putting restrictions on the free market to ensure an equal opportunity and competitiveness for businesses, the right to a decent home, so a right to housing, a right to adequate medical care, so good health care, and a right to adequate protection from economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment, so Social Security as you grow in age, and a good education. Unfortunately, FDR passed away early in his fourth term, so we couldn't see this come to fruition. You would think a vice president would continue on a policy of a previous president. However, Truman was chosen as FDR's VP mate because Truman was a blue dog conservative Democrat, and FDR feared that if he kept a VP that was more similar in lines of what he wanted to do, that he wouldn't win the nomination. So he chose Truman as his running mate. FDR's third-term VP, Henry Wallace, was more along the lines of what FDR actually wanted to do. So if FDR had Henry Wallace as his VP when he passed away, I do believe that Henry Wallace would have continued with FDR's policies and expanded on the New Deal, and we'd be a much better place. But Truman, being president, became a war hawk, specifically on the USSR after World War II. And we become the military-industrial complex, which Eisenhower himself warned us about at the end of his term. Federal minimum wage has basically been the same since 2009, but there's been state-enacted minimum wages across the country, which is good, but federally we need to have a livable minimum wage. But hopefully it starts happening soon. Along those same lines, this is a headline that was put out by NBC News. Solar eclipse will cost America almost $700 million in lost productivity. U.S. employers will see at least $694 million in missing output while workers gaze at a nearly 2.5-minute eclipse on Monday. Chat. This is how much value that you create. $700 million in 2.5 minutes. That's how much you create as a worker. 2.5 minutes. This is a crazy headline, but this headline gives us evidence to show that if we withhold our labor and not create value for companies and businesses and our bosses, that they will lose this much money. So it's important to come together and unionize and work as one to make sure that we are getting the value that we create. So that's that. I thought that was interesting stuff I wanted to share with chat.